Hello everyone, and welcome back to Wise Investors. If you're looking for an ETF that pays a high monthly income while investing in one of the most defensive sectors of the economy, then today's video is for you. We'll be looking at the Harvest Healthcare Leaders Income ETF, better known by its ticker HHL. At the time of recording, HHL offers an attractive 10.2% distribution yield, making it an interesting option for income investors, retirees, or anyone looking to generate passive cash flow from their portfolio. But here's the big question. Is HHL actually worth buying, or is that high yield hiding important risks? In this video, we'll cover how the ETF works, how it generates income, the companies it owns, its historical performance, the advantages and disadvantages, and finally, who should consider adding HHL to their portfolio. Let's get started. HHL is an actively managed Canadian ETF offered by Harvest ETFs. Instead of tracking an index like the S&P 500, HHL invests in approximately 20 large healthcare companies, with each company receiving roughly equal weighting in the portfolio. This means your investment isn't dominated by just one or two stocks. Instead, you gain diversified exposure across some of the biggest names in pharmaceuticals, biotechnology, medical devices, and healthcare services. What really makes HHL different, however, is its covered call strategy. The fund doesn't rely only on dividends from its holdings. It also generates additional income by selling covered call options on part of the portfolio. Those option premiums help boost the cash distributions that investors receive every month. So, HHL's objective is simple: provide attractive monthly income while still offering the opportunity for long-term capital appreciation. One of the biggest reasons investors like healthcare is that demand doesn't disappear during recessions. Whether the economy is booming or slowing down, people still need medications, surgeries, medical equipment, and healthcare services. On top of that, several long-term trends continue to support the sector. First, populations around the world are getting older. As people age, healthcare spending naturally increases. Second, chronic diseases such as diabetes, heart disease, and cancer continue to become more common, creating ongoing demand for treatments and new therapies. We're also seeing incredible innovation in biotechnology, artificial intelligence, robotic surgery, and breakthrough medications like GLP-1 weight loss drugs developed by companies such as Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk. Finally, healthcare spending continues to grow not only in developed countries but also in emerging markets as incomes rise and access to medical care improves. These trends make healthcare one of the most resilient sectors in the global economy and help explain why many investors include healthcare ETFs like HHL as part of a diversified long-term portfolio. Healthcare isn't just a defensive sector, it also has several powerful trends that could support growth for many years to come. One of the biggest drivers is medical innovation. Every year, pharmaceutical companies develop new treatments for diseases that previously had few or no effective options. These breakthroughs can create billions of dollars in new revenue. Artificial intelligence is another major opportunity. AI is already helping doctors detect diseases earlier, improve diagnoses, and accelerate the development of new drugs. We're also seeing tremendous growth in medical devices and robotic surgery, allowing hospitals to perform procedures that are safer, faster, and more precise. Another exciting area is GLP-1 weight loss medications. Drugs from companies like Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk are transforming obesity treatment and could become one of the largest pharmaceutical markets in history. Finally, as countries become wealthier, healthcare spending continues to rise. Emerging economies are investing more in hospitals, medicines, and healthcare infrastructure, creating additional long-term opportunities for the companies held inside HHL. When you combine all of these trends, healthcare remains one of the strongest long-term investment themes available today. Now let's look at how HHL is able to generate a yield of over 10%. The ETF starts by owning a portfolio of high-quality healthcare companies. On top of that, Harvest's portfolio managers sell covered call options on a portion of those holdings. Think of it like renting out your house. You still own the property, but someone pays you for the right to potentially buy it later at an agreed price. If that doesn't happen, you simply keep the payment and continue owning the house. Covered calls work in a very similar way. Investors pay the ETF an option premium, and those premiums become an additional source of income that helps fund the ETF's monthly distributions. Unlike some ETFs that always follow the same rules, Harvest actively manages its covered call strategy. It can adjust how many calls it sells, choose different strike prices, and react to changing market conditions. The trade-off is that if healthcare stocks rise very quickly, part of that upside may be capped because some shares could be called away. However, in exchange, investors receive significantly higher monthly income. One of the first numbers investors notice is HHL's current distribution yield of approximately 10.2%. While that's certainly attractive, it's important not to judge an ETF based solely on its yield. Looking at performance, HHL has experienced some short-term volatility, with a negative return year-to-date. However, over longer periods, the fund has delivered positive annualized returns. Over the past year, HHL returned 8.77%. Looking further back, its annualized returns were approximately 5.1% over 3 years, 5.8% over 5 years, and 6.8% over 10 years. These returns include both capital appreciation and the reinvestment of distributions. Remember, HHL is designed primarily as an income ETF, not a high-growth ETF. Investors buying HHL are generally looking for steady monthly cash flow while maintaining exposure to a defensive healthcare portfolio. That's why, when evaluating HHL, it's important to consider both the income it generates and its long-term total return, not just the headline yield. Let's take a look at what you're actually investing in when you buy HHL. The ETF owns approximately 20 of the world's leading healthcare companies, giving you exposure to several areas of the healthcare industry. For example, you'll find pharmaceutical giants like Eli Lilly, Johnson & Johnson, ABB Vi, and Merck, companies that develop many of the medicines used around the world. You'll also own healthcare providers like United Health, one of the largest health insurance companies in the United States. The portfolio also includes medical technology leaders such as Abbott Laboratories, Thermo Fisher Scientific, and Boston Scientific, companies that manufacture medical devices, laboratory equipment, and diagnostic technologies. One thing I like about HHL is that it isn't betting everything on a single company. Instead, it spreads your investment across multiple healthcare industries, reducing company-specific risk while still allowing you to benefit from innovation across the sector. So rather than trying to guess which healthcare stock will outperform, HHL gives you diversified exposure through one simple ETF. Now let's talk about what makes HHL attractive for income investors. The biggest advantage is obviously the high monthly income. Thanks to its covered call strategy, the ETF currently offers a distribution yield of around 10%, making it appealing for retirees and anyone seeking passive income. Second, healthcare is considered one of the most defensive sectors in the market. Unlike many industries, healthcare demand doesn't disappear during recessions because people continue to need medications, treatments, and medical care. Another benefit is the quality of the companies inside the portfolio. HHL focuses on large, established healthcare leaders with strong competitive positions and global operations. The covered call strategy can also help reduce portfolio volatility by generating option premiums, which provide a small cushion during periods of market weakness. Finally, because the ETF is professionally managed, investors don't need to trade options themselves. Harvest handles the covered call strategy for you, making it an easy way to generate monthly cash flow without managing options on your own. Of course, no investment is perfect, and HHL has a few important risks you should understand. The biggest drawback is that covered calls limit some of the upside. If healthcare stocks experience a strong rally, the ETF may underperform a traditional healthcare ETF because some gains are sacrificed in exchange for collecting option premiums. Another risk is regulation. Healthcare companies operate in a highly regulated industry, and changes to government policies or drug pricing can impact profits. Individual companies also face risks related to clinical trials, new drug approvals, and patent expirations. Although HHL is diversified, these factors can still affect the sector as a whole. Investors should also remember that the distribution is not guaranteed. While HHL has a history of paying monthly income, future distributions can increase or decrease depending on market conditions and the income generated by the portfolio. Overall, HHL is best viewed as an income-focused investment. If your primary goal is maximizing long-term growth, a traditional healthcare ETF without covered calls may be a better fit. However, if generating reliable monthly cash flow is your priority, HHL remains an attractive option despite these trade-offs. If you're wondering where to hold HHL, the good news is that it's eligible for all major Canadian registered accounts. For most investors, the tax-free savings account, or TFSA, is an excellent choice. Since distributions and future capital gains are tax-free, you get to keep more of your monthly income. The RRSP is another great option, especially if you're investing for retirement. Your investments can grow tax-deferred until you begin making withdrawals later in life. If you're saving for your first home, HHL can also be held inside the First Home Savings Account, or FHSA, giving you the same tax advantages while generating monthly cash flow. You can also own HHL in a taxable account, but keep in mind that distributions may include different types of income, such as dividends, capital gains, foreign income, or return of capital, each with its own tax treatment. For many Canadian investors focused on passive income, holding HHL inside a registered account is often the simplest and most tax-efficient approach. One of the biggest reasons investors buy HHL is the opportunity to generate monthly income. Let's use the current distribution yield of approximately 10.2% as an example. If you invested $25,000, that would translate to roughly $2,550 per year, or about $212 per month in distributions. Now imagine investing $100,000. At today's yield, that could generate approximately $10,200 annually, or around $850 every month. That's a meaningful amount of passive income that could help cover living expenses, supplement retirement income, or simply be reinvested to purchase more ETF units. However, it's important to remember that these figures are only estimates based on the current distribution yield. Future distributions can increase or decrease depending on market conditions, option premiums, and the ETF's overall performance. So, who is HHL really designed for? This ETF is best suited for investors who prioritize steady monthly income over maximizing long-term capital appreciation. It can be an excellent choice for retirees looking to supplement their pension income investors building a passive cash flow portfolio, or anyone who wants exposure to the healthcare sector without selecting individual stocks. It's also attractive for investors who like the idea of covered call ETFs but don't want the complexity of managing options themselves. On the other hand, HHL may not be the best choice for younger investors with a very long investment horizon whose primary objective is maximizing growth. In that case, a traditional healthcare ETF without covered calls may deliver higher returns during strong bull markets. Ultimately, HHL is ideal for investors who value consistent cash flow, defensive sector exposure, and a simpler approach to income investing. After reviewing HHL, I believe it's an excellent ETF for income-focused investors who want exposure to the healthcare sector. Its combination of leading healthcare companies, active covered call strategy, and monthly distributions makes it a compelling choice for generating passive income. Just remember that the higher yield comes with a trade-off. Some upside may be limited during strong bull markets. If your goal is steady monthly cash flow, HHL is definitely an ETF worth considering as part of a diversified portfolio. If you'd like to learn even more about HHL, check out the full article linked in the description below, where I cover the ETF in greater detail. And if you're looking for ready-made investment ideas, visit wiseinvestors.com, where you'll find my model portfolios designed specifically for Canadian investors, whether you're focused on growth, dividends, passive income, or balanced investing. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Would you add HHL to your portfolio? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.